So if these bumpers look familiar, these are the old ranch hand bumpers that came off of my truck. They are repainted to go onto the new truck. The gentleman that purchased these. They look really good in Caribou. What's going on, guys? So you are looking at the second generation Goosebox. We are going to be replacing the original Goosebox on the fifth wheel with this new second generation version. If you watched the video that I showed several weeks ago where we showcased the actual second generation Goosebox at an event in Dallas, they did a lot of improvements to this. Some of them are more visible from the bottom side here, such as the new and improved air valve right here, as well as the much taller wings that come up to allow you to position this lower, so it gives you the ability to have a little bit more bed to overhang clearance. They've also added a locking system here. So now you can actually put a lock on this and you can lock it to your truck whenever you're towing, or if you have it at an RV park, you can lock it while it's sitting there so nobody can hitch up to it and just drive off. A lot of really great improvements. A nice one, and one that you can also notice really well here, are these two holes, which are actually designed to allow you to hook your chains to them when you're not hooked up. So that's really nice. And these holes here are for your chains to anchor to the actual Goosebox assembly. So we are going to install this on the fifth wheel. Hang tight. I think you're going to like this. All right, so we are out at the front of the fifth wheel. This is coming off, and the way we're going to remove it is first to disconnect or to unscrew the trailer breakaway switch, as well as the chains. Then after the chains come off, we're going to simply unbolt the 4 bolts on each side to drop this down. Now the way we're going to do this is we're going to back the truck up to the actual fifth wheel, lower this down so this is only about 1/4 of an inch above the bed of the truck. So once we start loosening these bolts, it'll kind of take some of the weight off of the entire assembly. So this really shouldn't be that difficult. The solar panel, which was right here, is simply laying up here. We're just going to monitor that. That's not going to interfere with any of this because it kind of drapes above where the mounting connections are. But we will be moving from this Goosebox to that Goosebox. All right, so we've repositioned the truck. New hitch, old hitch. By the way, huge shout out to my good friend Patrick for helping me with this. I've been telling him he needs to start a YouTube channel. Believe it or not, he's actually a pretty funny guy, and he's a firefighter, and he saves people for a living, and he also does oil field work. So you mix the two together, he's just pretty much a badass. Anyways, YouTube channel, yes or no? I guess he has to talk more, and last time he was kind of hiding off camera.
How's it going, guys?
Anyways, we are going to pitch the front of this down, set it onto this nice little foam mat, and loosen the bolts, and then just swing the bottom down very carefully. Rinse, repeat, install with this one. So what we're doing here is lowering the front down, so this is going to be only about 1/4 inch above that mat, or maybe just touching it. So when we loosen these bolts here, the front ones first, it will transfer some of the weight there. As we loosen the back ones, we'll just kind of drop it down about 1 foot. Makes life a little easier. A little bit more. Right there, and I think we're good. Okay, so this worked out perfectly. Once we removed the last bolt, having it propped up right here made it very easy. I mean, the weight's all pretty much balancing on the front there. It's not too bad, huh?
Yeah, it's easy. Look.
And then just drop it down, and we should be good.
Yep.
Okay, now that we have them both side by side, you can see a little bit more of the differences. You can see how the top of this one is kind of flattened off, and then you can see how this one has a little bit of an extension there. And again, that's going to give us the ability to position this assembly a little bit lower here, which will give us increased bed overhang height between the side rail here and the underhang of the fifth wheel. Now, when you compare the two in other places, this one you can see has a really nice fitting here, whereas this one is more of just a cheap fitting with a little blow-off valve right here, or pressure relief valve if you overfill the bag. A lot of people claimed that sometimes you'd hit bumps and it would prematurely engage this valve, which would cause air to leak out of your bag system. So they went to a much better system here, and that was based on owner's feedback. Also, the way they've positioned the cable, it now feeds through down here versus off to the side. You also get a really nice locking adapter here at the bottom, which this one currently doesn't have. So they've made essentially all of the upgrades and modifications I had talked about in previous videos that I had suggested whenever they come out with the next generation. That is really cool because that means they listen to their owners and they listen to people who talk about these. They sent me this specific hitch because they wanted me to evaluate it and give my best recommendation on if I thought this was truly an improvement over this previous model. From a design and engineering perspective, so far, I believe it is. Okay, so we've temporarily put the solar panel up here, and what we're doing is we have the main part of the Goosebox weighted down on the front here. It's simply setting here, and then we're rocking the back up, and we're putting our nuts and bolts in place to hold it. So once we align this side, we'll be able to throw a bolt in, and then we're going to have to lift the fifth wheel up slightly simply because this drops down a little bit more, so it's a little lower up front. So we got the bolts in. Now we just need to tighten them down and torque them to spec, which is 220 pound-feet. I have the torque wrench here already. Now the instructions specifically say that you torque from this side. I know everyone on the last video said you need to torque from the nut side, and I think part of the reason for that is because they use these little washers that have a cone shape to them, and they want it pulled into the actual steel. The other thing a lot of people said is if you're going to torque from the bolt side, you need to over-torque it a certain percent. And I would have imagined that they would have built into the instructions the proper amount of over torquing to properly secure these. So I'm going to torque it the way that they've specifically recommended torquing it, and I'm going to torque it from this side, but I may test it from this side just to be sure that we're at the right torque specifications when we're done. Now I do have extra bolts because we removed the other Goosebox, and I have an extra hole right here that passes through, so we're going to go ahead and put in the additional bolt down here at the bottom. So instead of having 4 bolts on each side, we're going to have 5. Okay. All right, so it is completely installed. We have the chains mounted. They're hooked through the little chain loops that are included. We have everything put on. Let me go around to the other side here so you can see where the trailer breakaway is. It's right here. We also have the cord routed through here so it comes off the side. Very easy access to the plug on the side of the truck. Everything looks really good. The solar panel just moved right over to the new one. This is probably the easiest part because we just set it aside until we put the new Goosebox in. It mounted right up. What we're going to do now is hitch it up to the truck and see exactly how it sits. Real quick, something to keep in mind, the existing Fort Knox locks that I had on the old Goosebox doesn't fit this one, but only by a hair. So I'm going to contact them and let them know they need to shave just a little bit off right here so it clears it, mainly because it sits a little higher, and because of where this locking bracket is, it doesn't allow it to close completely. It's only maybe about a 1/16 of an inch off, so it's very, very close. What you see Patrick doing is reinstalling the grease zerk. We took it off simply because we didn't want it to break off while we were doing the installation. It just comes right off and then you screw it right back on when you're done. Hey Patrick, overall installation time, what? It took us maybe about 2 hours? A little less than that?
Less than 2 hours, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it was fairly simple. I mean, it's almost plug and play if you think about it.
Once we got the idea of propping the front up on the back of the truck, it really didn't take much effort. The heaviest part of this assembly is this front part right here, and when you take the weight off of that, moving the back up into place is actually pretty simple. All right, we're going to clean up a little bit, then we'll come back out and hitch the truck up and see how it sits. All right, so now that we're hitched up, the overhang looks really good. I don't have any air in the airbag yet. The next thing I'm gonna do is add some air to the Goosebox and see what it does. But I have right at 6 inches of clearance here, and the trailer itself is not angled back any, so I'm not dealing with a trailer that's now tilted back really far. Everything looks like it's gonna work out really well. The trailer may tilt back a little bit from level, but I don't think I'll have an issue, especially with the more robust tires and the Equalizer that I'm using on it. That being said, let's add some air to the airbag in here and see what happens. Okay, so I've added air to the air chuck, and as you can hopefully see right in the center of that little viewing window, let me zoom in on that, you can see that the metal bar is right in the middle, and that's where you want to be for the perfect amount of air in the airbag. If the bar is closer to the bottom portion of that window, then you have overinflated your airbag, and if you don't see it at all, you've underinflated your airbag. But at this point, that's where it should be. And now I have a good amount of clearance here. So let's actually take a measurement. All right, so it looks like we have about 7.5 inches of clearance between the top of the bed rail and the bottom overhang of the fifth wheel. That is actually right about where you want to be. Most of the time they're going to say you want 6 inches of clearance at least. I have a little bit more than that. And all I have to do to adjust this is put the standard goose ball in. Right now I'm using a goose ball that has a 2-inch height increase over a standard goose ball, but if I go to one that only has a 1-inch height increase, then I'll have the perfect amount of bed rail clearance. So as you can see, here is the goose ball with the 1-inch height increase, and you can see the 2-inch, it's more like 2.5 inch that the B&W has. So all I have to do to lower it slightly is use this goose ball, and I'll be in great shape. Everything worked out very, very well. I'm very pleased with this setup. The overall installation time from start to finish, about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. And really, as long as you just practice some safe techniques, don't try to bear the entire weight of this thing on your own, you shouldn't have any problem installing it. The way we did it by putting the front on the bed really helped us out a lot. Let's go ahead and unhitch and wrap this up. So real quick, a subtle yet very big improvement over the previous Goosebox is before this cable was kind of positioned off to the side and it was hard to reach. Now you can actually lean over your tailgate and get to it. And then you can pull it over, lock it in place, and you're ready to decouple. So that is a great improvement. Another issue I was having that not everyone was having was the fact that I'd usually have to drop all the air out of the airbag in the Goosebox before it would really let me decouple. So let's see what happens now. I'm using my Bulldog landing gear control. It gives me independent control of each of the legs. Used my Viair onboard air system to fill up the airbag. Now let's see if it decouples easier than it did before. Perfect. All right, Patrick, you want to do the honors of locking this thing up?
Let's do it. All right. Let's see.
There we go.
Good to
Locked
go.
up and looking really good. The entire assembly turned out really, really nice. Definitely a great product. I am glad that they came out with the 2nd generation version. Let's quickly go over what we've done here besides just installing it. All right, so first and probably the biggest upgrade to the Generation 2 over the Generation 1 is the fact that you can now mount it lower. So you get 2 inches of additional mounting clearance that you can drop this thing down. Comes with the 4 bolts. We added a 5th just for, extra peace of mind. Not that it's really needed, but we had the bolts anyways. We remounted the trailer brake breakaway right here. You now have the ability to lock it. So this is great to lock it while you're towing or just to lock it while it's in storage. This is going to give you a lot of extra peace of mind in terms of security. I'm going to work with the Fort Knox Locks guys and let them know that they'll need to make a little bit larger opening here just to go around this assembly now. Not much of a difference really. They've added these really nice plastic Reese badges on the side and this little viewing window that lets you know when you have enough air in the airbag. And they've upgraded to this much nicer air valve. They've relocated the cable holder right here, which is really convenient versus the one that came off the side. It's easier to reach and it works better in my opinion. On the back side here, they've added an area to mount your chains, which is also really nice. Overall, this is a great 2nd generation product. It's going to give a lot of flexibility to people who need it. It still is able to support the solar panel on the front. Love that. That's going to definitely give my battery a nice conditioned charge when I come out here. Overall, guys, this is a very simple to do install. This is a great product. They have this in 2 different versions. They have a 16,000 and a 20,000 version. They've gone to these really nice plastic Reese templates up front. Cleans the look up, looks really good. I will put a link in the description of this video so you know where to get one of these if you're interested. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.